Here's something the people stepping off private jets won't tell you. Most of them don't actually own the plane. And the ones who do? A lot of them are quietly losing money on it. Today, I'll show you how you'd really acquire one. Welcome to Acquisition Insider, where we take apart how people actually acquire the things you assumed you never could. Today we go big. A private jet. By the end, you'll know what one truly costs. And it is not the sticker price. The 4 ways to get access from cheapest to most insane. The exact math for when owning beats renting, and the tax secret that's the real reason these things get bought at all. Buckle up. First, the purchase price. Because it's the number everyone fixates on and the one that matters least. A used entry-level light jet, think a small 4 to 6-seater, can run around $2 to $4 million. A new mid-size jet that crosses the country, $15 to $25 million. A large cabin intercontinental jet, the kind that flies non-stop to Tokyo, $50 to $75 million and up. Big numbers. But here's the trap. The purchase price is the cheapest part of owning a jet. Because a plane sitting in a hangar doing absolutely nothing still burns through cash every single month. And that's the number nobody puts on the brochure. So let's talk about that number. The one that turns a trophy into a money pit. Because before the jet ever leaves the ground, it's already costing you a fortune. Owning a jet has 2 kinds of cost. First, fixed costs. The ones you pay even if the plane never moves. 2 full-time pilots' salaries, hangar rent, insurance, a maintenance program. Add those up, and a mid-sized jet can cost $500,000 to over $1 million a year just to exist. Then come the variable costs. Every hour in the air burns fuel, engine reserves, and landing fees, often $3,000 to $8,000 per flight hour. Put it together, and flying a mid-sized jet a few hundred hours a year can easily run $1 to $3 million annually, all in. The plane isn't the expense. Owning the plane is the expense, which is exactly why most smart buyers never buy the metal at all. Because there isn't one way to acquire a jet, there are 4. And picking the wrong one is how rich people quietly waste millions. Here's the ladder, from sensible to absurd. Rung 1. Chartering. You rent the whole jet by the trip, no ownership, no fixed costs, for roughly $3,000 to $10,000 an hour. Perfect if you fly a handful of times a year. Rung 2. A jet card. You prepay for a block of hours, say 25 hours for a few $100,000, locking in guaranteed access at a fixed rate. Rung 3. Fractional ownership, the NetJets model. You buy a share, of a specific jet, maybe 1/16, which gets you around 50 flight hours a year, for a buy-in of several $100,000 to $1 million, plus a monthly management fee and an hourly rate. You own a slice of the actual asset. And Rung 4, whole ownership. You buy the entire plane and pay every cost yourself. Total control, total exposure. The genius move isn't climbing to the top rung, it's knowing which rung you're flying actually justifies. And that's a math problem. A surprisingly clean one. There's a break-even point that tells you exactly when owning a jet stops being ego and starts making sense. Here's the rule of thumb the pros use. If you fly fewer than about 200 hours a year, ownership almost never wins. Chartering or a jet card is cheaper because you're not carrying those brutal fixed costs. Between roughly 200 and 400 hours, fractional ownership tends to be the sweet spot. You get guaranteed access without buying the whole money pit. And only once you're flying more than about 400 hours a year does buying the entire jet start to pay off. Because now you're spreading those fixed costs across enough trips to justify them. So the first question a real buyer asks isn't which jet, it's how many hours will I actually fly? Get that number honestly. And the right answer falls out of the math. But if the math is so unforgiving, why do so many people still buy the whole plane? The answer is a tax secret. And it's the real engine behind half the jets in the sky. First, yes, you can finance a jet. Banks lend against them like any asset, often with 10 to 20% down because the plane is collateral. But here's the real driver: depreciation. When a jet is bought through a business and used primarily for business travel, the tax code can let the owner write off a huge chunk of the purchase price against their income, sometimes a large share in the very first year. On a $15 million jet, that write-off can be worth millions in reduced taxes. That's why so many jets are owned by companies, not people. The catch: the IRS has strict rules. The jet has to be genuinely used for business, documented flight by flight, or the whole deduction collapses. Used right, it's the most powerful number in the entire deal. Used wrong, it's an audit. And there's one more trick owners use to fight the money pit. They turn the jet from a cost into a business. Here's how they make the plane pay for itself. When you own a jet, it sits idle most of the time. And idle is expensive. So many owners put their plane onto a charter certificate and rent it out to other travelers when they're not using it. That charter income helps offset the crushing fixed costs: the crew, the hangar, the insurance. It's the same instinct as renting out a house you're not living in. But it's a trade-off. More flights mean more wear on the aircraft, more maintenance, and less spontaneous availability for you. Done well, chartering back can cover a real slice of your annual costs. Done carelessly, you've just turned your luxury into someone else's Uber, with your name on the maintenance bill. So let's answer the question we opened with. Why don't most owners actually own? Because when you run all the numbers, the smart money reaches a surprising conclusion. Here's the truth underneath the fantasy. A private jet isn't really an asset. It's a service you're buying access to. It loses value over time, it costs a fortune to hold, and unless you're flying constantly, owning the whole thing is the worst financial move on the menu. That's why the genuinely wealthy overwhelmingly charter, buy jet cards, or own fractions. They buy the access, not the airplane. The people who buy the metal outright are usually either flying 400+ hours a year or using it as a tax and business tool with eyes wide open. Everyone else is buying a very fast, very expensive way to lose money. So that's how you actually acquire a private jet. And why the smartest move is usually not to. If you charter, go fractional, or just buy the whole thing anyway. Tell me in the comments. And tell me what I should break down next. Next episode, we come back to Earth and acquire something you can actually cash flow: a car wash. Until then, this is Acquisition Insider, showing you how the machine really works.